Let's get started. So my name is Lauren. I run our events program here at PERC. If you guys are new to this program, welcome. If you guys have joined us for a SOFA seminar before, welcome back. Today we have Angie Lombardi. She is the VP of Marketing with the Franklin Johnston Group, and her and Mohammed are going to be talking about training. So at Franklin Johnston, they just created their own training program. So she's going to talk about what she learned, why they decided to develop this training program, and stuff that she will be looking to do in the future, and how she's continually learning and evolving in this process. So as we're going through this, please feel free to drop your questions for Angie in the chat or in the Q&A feature of this webinar. We will go for about 40 minutes. So we'll either answer all your questions during the session if they make sense, or at the end. During this session, we will also be putting up a couple poll questions. So please make sure you guys are interacting and using those. So let's go ahead and get it kicked off. Mohammed, if you want to go ahead and start.
Thank you, Lauren. Thanks everybody for coming. I see some couple of things there in the chat, and I agree. This is training is also my jam. I'm super excited about chatting about this one. Thank you for that, Kelsey. Before we get started, Angie, let's talk about where we are right now. Right. I really appreciate you coming to hang out with us. You are coming live from a hotel in Florida, right?
Yes.
What's going on?
If I look sweaty, oily, short of breath, I literally ran into the hotel, grabbed a key, and ran up to my room. I mistakenly typed in the wrong address to our hotel, so I was supposed to be here about 20 minutes earlier. And so yeah, I'm coming to you literally on the fly. But thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk with you guys today.
No, I'm really excited to have you, especially on such a big day for you. I know you guys won an award, right?
Yes.
Big stuff.
Yep. We are taking over some management here in South Florida, and had a lot of teams to visit, and getting ready for that transition. We were able to talk to them ahead of time and get them excited and tell them about the company. So I love what I do, and I love working for the Franklin Johnston Group. So it was really fun to meet new people.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome. So we're talking about training today, right? All things training, because you all, and you in particular, brought out some really cool stuff from a training perspective. I know a lot of it's still fresh. You're learning from it as far as like what worked. You're learning the areas maybe didn't work so well, right?
Yes.
It's kind of a work in progress.
For sure.
But I feel like this is the best time to talk about it, right? Like when you're in the thick of it, and really all those learns are fresh. So this is going to be a good one. I want to take a step back as we talk about this first, and just talk about what you noticed that drove you to develop the training program in the first place, right? Like what was that spark that was like, we need to do this? And then we'll go from there into what the actual training encompasses.
Sure. There were actually a few reasons. It's probably 2 to 3 main reasons why we decided to develop a training program. One is my background is sales and marketing. So every sales job I joined, there was a training program, right? Mm-hmm. We are a pretty young company. We were founded in 2013. Now, hey, Kalachi. Now that sounds like a young company, and in brand and name recognition it is, but our founders have 100 years collectively in the multifamily industry, and they broke off from another company. They were developing and managing their communities, and were with a management company, and after they got, a collection of communities, they said, why are we working for a company and doing all of this, but also paying them the management fee when we could literally do it ourselves? And that company is also diversified. So retail, office, industrial space, and their passion, the Franklins and the Johnstons, their passion is multifamily. So they said, we just want a management firm solely focused on multifamily management. So we have a lot of experience on our team, but we wanted to make sure that we were onboarding employees, we call them team members, the correct way. But we grew so fast in somewhat of a short period of time that you can't do everything. I mean, the company started with 13 employees, then added on some site team members with those communities, and now 8 years later, we're at over 525. to 5:30.
Wow.
And then we're adding another about 41 employees or team members when we take over these properties here in South Florida that we were visiting. So it's really hard to ensure that everybody is trained the right way, the same way, when we're spread over 7 states. When I started with the company in 2018, I think we had 83 properties. Now we're at 120. And that was just in 2.5 years. And now we're adding another 11. So as you can imagine, things couldn't always happen when we wanted them to. And training's always been important, as we know, but there wasn't enough people. There wasn't enough time. It was just rock and roll, get everybody going. And we really relied on our managers and regionals to train everyone, which is great. But once you get to a certain point, you need that structure. You need a plan. So that was part of it. And then also, we apply for, best places to work in multifamily, which we won the past 2 years. NAA, we were a finalist this year. And you get a lot of great information from those employee surveys, because that's how you win these awards, is it's based on employee feedback. And a lot of the thread of the conversation was, we'd like more training. We want more training. We want more training. And me onboarding, new marketing sources or CRM systems, again, you have to train them, but it's busy during the day. So, our vendors are sending out invitations for them to join trainings, but in the middle of the day, when you have 700 things going on and vendors coming in and out, residents coming in and out, and then throw COVID in the mix. So we really needed more of a structure, and we needed a way to identify people that are new to the company, who have been with the company that might need advanced training on some of our software. So we developed a team of subject matter experts for our software and systems. And then myself and another gentleman who's a rock star leasing consultant, he was an assistant manager, came from the hospitality industry before multifamily, and is amazing at customer service and connecting with people. And so he and I have developed the sales and marketing side of the training. So we're 2 departments that work together to create this training team. And so we have evolved and are still evolving and trying to learn. I was saying to you earlier, train the trainer, right? Like, what do we do?
Right. So that's all, man, that is, first of all, congratulations on the growth. That is fast paced. And I certainly understand what it means to kind of have things pop up as you're going. You're moving fast, you're fixing problems on the fly, but eventually you're right. You get to a point where you cannot continue to successfully scale without backing up and actually laying something out that's more formalized, that can work as you're bringing on new people.
And how do you hold people accountable if you don't give them the training, if you don't give them standards that you expect to follow?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
I mean, we can send out
especially a consistency across multiple states.
These are our standards, but how do we know you're following them? How do we know that you read the piece of paper we gave you? We do onboarding, but again, it's so much information when you're onboarding somebody in such a short amount of time that things get lost. And
absolutely.
Yeah. So we felt like we couldn't set our teams up for success if we didn't start to really make sure that there was something there for them.
So you mentioned a little bit about, you mentioned, of course, tools, right? And anytime you're bringing a new tool on, there can be some learning curves on that. Some are easier than others, right, to implement. Some are more disruptive than others, especially when you start talking about on-site teams and all the things that they have to do every day. But you also mentioned what felt like a little bit of a core seed here, which was customer service. Yes. Inside of that, I know you're a big fan of the FISH philosophy.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Tell me about that from a Franklin Johnson perspective. For people that aren't familiar with it, first of all, what is the FISH philosophy?
The FISH philosophy is pretty much a way of life, a way of looking at things. It's an anecdotal story, but it's based on the spark of the story came from one of the writers was at the Pike Place fish market in Seattle. I think I've never been to Seattle. I can't wait to go. I want to go there so bad, especially after reading the book and seeing the videos online. And I know people that have visited, and it's amazing. So it was really a story about how you can change someone's perspective by the way you look at things, by the way you approach a situation. In this industry, a lot of times we hear the negative, right? We have the resident complaints, the negative reviews, all the fires that we have to put out. And
Yeah.
it's really coming from a place of positivity and how you can change the culture of your office just by making slight adjustments in the way you look at things, the positivity you put out. And it kind of goes through the inner workings of this interpersonal relationship between this woman and this man in this office, and
Mm.
how approaching him the way he would approach things made it a more combative and negative situation. And she had an epiphany when she went to the Pike Place Fish Market, and how everybody was so happy. They couldn't wait to see their customers. They were like, come on in, let's do this. And just that
Yes.
positive attitude, and that I'm excited you're here. I'm happy to see you. If there is a problem, hey, let's work together to fix it. And coming at it from a different perspective and approaching it in a different way, then his attitude changed. Then the attitude of
Yes.
his team members changed. So it's kind of about leadership, but it's also about making someone's day. If somebody's
Absolutely.
having a bad day,
Absolutely.
what can you do? Just give them a little compliment, give them a little kudos to turn their day around from a negative to a positive. And I think we can do that with each other as teammates. We can do that with residents. We can do it with prospective residents. With anybody you come in contact with. If you're having a bad day and somebody walks by you and they're like, Angie, really love your dress. I'm like, oh, thanks. Like, it's 7 years old and I thought it looked like crap. Like, great, thanks. You know, just little things like that can really change somebody. And that's kind of the basis of the fish philosophy. We have fish, like stuffed fish. I have a stuffed fish in my office. Every new
Oh,
hire, we
wow.
ask them to read it. We talk about it in our training. It's one of our things. And we have a set of core values that are very important that we've established back in 2013 that we still live by. They hang in every one of our offices. And we have something called Be the Solution, which is an award where someone has been exemplifying and living the core values, and they're nominated by their peers, their supervisors, if residents write in a good note, and that's shared company wide, again, to give those kudos. So it's not just lip service. It's something we
Yeah.
live by and we talk about constantly, especially, I mean, I've just been onboarding 11 properties or starting to, and our 6 core values were kind of born out of this mentality. And again, something that we live by every day. So we want everybody to live those with us.
I love that. I love that so much. And I mean, you're right. It can be very easy to, in this sort of environment, especially when you're on site, to really get caught up in some of the potentially negatives, right? And this is standard across, a lot of people that are in customer service types of roles, right? My early career was at VictoriaSecret.com, also in customer service area, and you get so much negativity brought to you on a consistent basis, and it's easier also sometimes to share that, and it makes for a more fun and robust conversation. But the reality is that even for every person that is coming and potentially complaining about something, you have 10 other people that are just fine and very, very happy because of the work that you have done. You are maybe not hearing from them, right?
Exactly.
So one, I think keeping that in mind, and then also when something comes to you, keeping that positive approach to it, and just that willingness to serve and help creates just a whole completely different, not only environment for your residents, right, but also for your coworkers and for yourself, right? That negativity is fun for a second until it drags you in.
And that's what I say in the training. They were making fun of me because, when you're frustrated or there's a negative situation, of course you need to vent, you need to let it out, because it can fester inside of you, and that makes your day worse, right? So you have to let it out. And I say, eject the negativity, and they laugh at me. But it's true, but I don't want you to dwell on it. I don't want you to go around and complain to every coworker about the negativity, whatever. Go outside, call a friend, call your mom, call your brother, call your dog, and vent. Let it out, eject it, blow off that steam, and then go back in and just kind of let it roll, because negativity breeds negativity, and it'll just tumble, right? So
exactly.
So I like to say, positivity can breed itself the same way. We just have to change our mindset.
I love that. So we're going to move into the building of the training program, but I do have a question here from Susan that I want to get in because I feel like this is the right time for this. You made mention of fish philosophy and building that into the core values at Franklin Johnston and what that looks like. What are some of those core values?
Knowledge. So you can always learn something, right? So knowledge, teamwork, balance, having a work-life balance, knowing when to just shut off the computer, knowing what you can't be the best you if you don't take time for you. You have to take care of yourself before you can take care of your team, your residents, your family, your friends, your animals, whoever. You have to make time for yourself. So it's teamwork, knowledge, balance, character, commitment, and communication. So communicating honestly and respectfully, character, work like no one's watching. It's just what we try to instill in everyone. And like I said, it's in every single leasing office. We have laminated cards that we give to every new hire. It's plastered everywhere. It's in our new hire team member handbook twice because they were developed by those 13 first people that started the company. And yeah, they sat at a retreat and they said, what do we want to be? And they said, we want to be about the people. It's our residents, it's our vendors, it's our prospective residents, it's our team members, people. Doesn't matter if you're a resident, a vendor, we want to make sure that everyone is working as a team and communicating the right way, and work hard, play hard mentality is kind of how we roll. So those are the 6 core values.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Thank you for sharing those. And thank you, Susan, for the,
Thanks, Susan,
for the question in there. So we're going to move into the building of your training program itself. And as we're kind of going in there, I want to pop up our first question here, Lauren, if you can get that up on the screen, just about for your teams, what you feel like you can improve on. And while we're gathering some of those questions or answers, Angie, let's just chat really quickly about goals. So sounds like you guys have a very defined culture. You knew what some of the issues were that you were trying to solve overall from a scale perspective and consistency across your organization. The specific goals are always important, like having those like defined. When you set out to create that training program, what were the specific kind of goals that you guys were trying to hit with that? How'd you measure success?
So the measurement, we don't really know yet.
Fair enough. Is it feel versus a
yes.
number? Is it more of a feel?
For me, it's a feel on marketing, right? So it's all about the feeling.
Yep.
And
it's art and science.
Exactly. So I think the numbers will come, but obviously, is resident satisfaction improving, right? Because it's all about the customer service, the customer experience. How do you feel when you walk into a community? So we start off very basic with our TFJG standards, what we expect the property to look like, what we want it to smell like. If you're playing music, it needs to be, just soothing and not crazy. And, we have certain scents that we like to use, and we have an A-frame outside of every single office saying, welcome, please come in. That is every time we have a property that we take over or we build, there are these certain things that we must have. The core values have to be there. The A-frame has to be there, welcoming people to come in. We want everybody to, stand up and greet people. So it's just the very basics. And of course, we all know these things, right? We know how to be welcoming when somebody walks in, but, we know to drive around the property, make sure or walk the property and make sure there's not trash. But we also, if I work at a property every day for 5 years, I might become complacent and miss those things. So it's showing the new team members what we expect. And it's reminding the team members that have been with us for a while or in the industry for a while, take a step back, slow down. I know it's busy, but you can become complacent. I do. I drive by the same thing every day and I'm like, when did that shopping center paint its, exterior? Oh, that's been there a year. What? So you miss things. And so we start everybody off at back to basics. I don't care how long you've been in the industry. I don't care how long you've been with a company. It's a reminder of this is who we are. These are our standards and this is what we expect. And you have to act as if any day an owner is going to walk into your property. And that is
So true.
if it's owned and managed by TFJG, if it's third party managed by TFJG, I don't care. Everybody is treated the same. Everything has to look the same.
Everything needs to smell the same.
You want
Love
a
it.
familiarity, and so
Yeah,
it's not
yeah.
exact, and every property has its own personality and own color palettes and all of that, but we want a certain feeling, and an expectation is if you walk into a Franklin Johnston Group property, this is what you're going to see. And then we go into a lot into customer service, overcoming objections, things like that in our part. Then the more technical and operation side, we set up, we use MRI. So MRI basic training, MRI advanced training,
Okay.
Nexus payables where we do invoicing. So the different software platforms, specific blocks of time where people can sign up and know that they're getting that training with this person. And it can be in person or it can be a webinar because we're in 7 different states. So
Mhm.
we have a training, and another thing that helped propel this is in 2019, not long before the pandemic hit, we were able to get more office space and put in a big training room in our office with
Great
2
timing.
huge screens, the camera. I mean, yeah, it's like our IT people knew that this was coming.
Right.
So it really helped facilitate being able to connect, because that's our big thing too, is if you're in Rhode Island or Florida, we want you to feel like you're a part of the family. We don't want you to feel left out. And that was a great way to be able to still connect with people, see them face to face, because connections are everything. Obviously in person is
Yep.
better, but we can't always fly to Rhode Island. We can't always fly to Florida. So, and so still being able to have that face to face and that personal interaction, but I can see you, but I can also see your screen. I can follow along.
Right.
Really important. Yeah. And I have
Right.
no idea if I answered your question.
I got really good stuff out of that, and I enjoyed that. Thank you. But to the thing of goals, it sounds like really what this is about is you identified exactly what you want people to know, regardless of where they are in their tenure, in their career, etc. This is what it means to be at one of our properties, right?
Yes.
And I
Yes.
love that you guys go all the way down to like smell. You're kind of like this 360-degree sensory, visual, feeling experience. But then also, as you mentioned earlier, making sure that not only were you able to deliver those in kind of a, almost like modular format, here's what you need to go through, but confirming afterwards that people actually heard what you said.
Yes. So yeah,
Right.
so it's twofold, right? We have them in the training or on a webinar training, but then we can deploy to the field because we have a regional, we have a marketing and leasing specialist in Northern Virginia. We have myself and our other training, sales and leasing training person. I have another person on my team, and then we have a regional marketing specialist in Florida that handles, the southern states. So we can deploy, or the regionals can go and walk the property and say, okay, we knew they needed the training, or we gave them this training. We set them up for success. Are they doing it? And so that's where those metrics come in, is, are they employing the knowledge we gave them, or are they re-employing things they knew, but they kind of let slide a little bit because things got busy or got crazy. So that's more of that feeling, right? That seeing that feeling. And then of course the leasing metrics, better customer service leads to more leases, higher resident retention. So that's the numbers thing. And it's not anything to do with our training, because it's so new, but our leasing numbers are amazing. Our occupancy numbers are better than they've been. Some people say, oh, well, that's because you can't evict anybody. That's not true.
It's not true.
Will we have some evictions once the moratorium is up? Certainly, I can't say we're not going to have any, but we worked really hard too to help and this goes into the customer service, and this goes up to corporate office, not just site teams, helping the people apply for the assistance and helping push that through the system to say, hey, we got you. We're helping you. We're here to help you. You don't know how to do the paperwork. In Virginia, we were allowed to help them. And state by state, it's different, but we were allowed to help them with the paperwork and just say, we need this piece of paper and this piece of paper, and we're filing it for you. And so it's that customer service, resident retention, getting new residents, but it's easier to keep residents, right? So if you just give good customer service,
yes, it
you don't
is.
have to worry about
Exactly. So Training's great. Obviously, and you're dealing with a situation where you are bringing in some existing people, we're going to kind of focus on like leasing specialists in particular here, right?
Sure.
You're taking over properties. Some of them are already there. You're also, of course, you're growing fast. So you're doing some hiring as well. And I'm sure that there are some components to what makes a good leasing specialist that you can see up front. We were talking, it was last year, to Katrina over at Sheehan Properties, and she had mentioned to me about how she finds some of her best people at restaurants. This is pre-pan. Actually, I guess this must have been 2019. 2020 disappeared. 2019 pre-pandemic. She was like, I find them great at restaurants. If I get an awesome server, here's my card, because there's some innate skills that are just key to being great at that customer service and really succeeding as a leasing agent. Then after we answer this, we're going to go back to see what those answers were. What are the key components? Like, there's some that you can't really train, but you can maybe
100%.
amplify, right? What are the key components that you look for saying, okay, this is going to be a rock star leasing specialist?
It's a lot of things that we already talked about, or you just kind of alluded to. And what's really funny about this, and I know you don't know this, our rockstar leasing consultant that's now my partner in crime with training and sales and marketing, he worked at a restaurant.
There we go.
He was in the
this
hospitality.
Continues to be a thing.
He was in the restaurant industry, I think 20 some years, mostly fine dining. He managed restaurants. He, did wait staff trainings. He managed entire restaurants. And then he was, right before he came to work for us, he was a server at a high-end restaurant in downtown Norfolk, which is not far from our office. And a regular of that establishment was Wendell Franklin, one of our owners. And Jeff waited on them pretty much exclusively after a while. They have their special table. They sit at it every time they go. The owners know them.
Right.
That's where they sit. If they can't sit at that table, they're going to another restaurant. I am not kidding. It's their favorite table. They love the food, but they're like, oh, we'll just go down the street and go here. Jeff waited on them all the time and gave them such impeccable service, was personable, but not too intrusive. You have that server that is fun and you're getting along with them. But then all of a sudden they think like you're their best friend and you think they're just going to sit down and start eating your food.
Right.
Maybe back off a little, that's a little overzealous. So it's that balance of customer service, personality, but not aggressive, not over the top. You have to learn how to mirror your customer, right? I learned that in sales. If you're in a meeting and people are just like, you might want to be a little more. Sometimes you go into a sales meeting or a meeting with an owner and they're just, kicking their feet up and they've got flip-flops on.
Right.
Well, then you don't want to be this stuffy, gruff, serious, Mr. Serious Man. So you have to know how to play to your audience. You have to know how to ask questions without sounding like you're just interrogating them. And that's the biggest thing. You have to make it a conversation. You have to get what you need out of them, right? You can't sell somebody something if you don't know what they can spend, what they're looking for, what their need to haves are, I cannot handle this. Do I have to have a certain amenity? All of those things, but you also don't want to just go down your list of, I can't stand when I listen to phone calls. When I'm spot checking calls and it's like, okay, somebody's like, do you have a 2-bedroom? Yeah, we have a 2-bedroom coming available, blah, blah, blah. It's $14.99. It's newly renovated. It has stainless steel appliances, white cabinets, granite countertops. It overlooks the pool. I'm like,
thank you for memorizing, but that's too much.
How about asking them what their price range is? Or they'll say, one of the objections that one of our girls was, Angie, they just asked me the price and they hear the price and they're like, oh, okay, thanks. And they hang up. I said, don't tell them the price. She's like, what do you mean? I said, ask them a few questions first. Eventually, if you start asking questions, you start building rapport. You can find a nugget to build rapport with anybody. I don't care who they are. I don't care where they live. I don't care how old or young they are. If you are insightful enough and you can ask the right questions, and that's it. And that, again, my long-winded answer is land the plane. That's what my friends say. Land the plane, Angie. The point is,
I have the same problem.
There are inherent traits, like you said, that you cannot teach. I can teach you how to use MRI. We can teach you how to use our billing system. We can teach you how to use the CRM system. There are just certain personality traits you can't teach. And you have to be somewhat outgoing. Some people are shy and they're still really good at it because their prospects are a little shy and want somebody a little more even keeled and low key. That's not me. But if I can get that vibe from somebody and then mirror that, there are those things that you just can't teach, and that's what we look for. But in our company, we look for personality. Are you a good culture fit? Are you a good, personality fit? We can teach you a lot of that. If you got the personality and the go get them, and you care about people, and again, this is the most important decision of their life, at least for this 12 months, hopefully longer, is their home. If they're spending at least a third of their income every month on it, this is where their kids grow up. This is where they're homeschooling. This is where they're working from home now. And hopefully, everything's opening up now, but it's that care and that passion and knowing how to connect with somebody that you just know.
I love that. Yeah, you're spot on all points. Lauren, can you pop up the poll answers on what folks are working on from a training perspective? So we've got a tie in first place, it looks like here, with one, staying up to date on the rules and regulations and guidelines. Very boring, but very, very important.
Yes.
Right. And then building a more robust leasing experience. We talked about quite a bit, I think, in our conversation so far, is about really how you can really focus in on that experience. On the rules and regulations side, that's one that's, you could send a memo, you could send a notice. I have a feeling that you guys probably do a little bit more than that, right?
Yeah.
So I have a question for you on that in a second. And then I think the third one there was about fostering career development for promotions and things like that, right? Your best leasing specialist is probably going to be your best property manager, who could then continue on and on and on. Thank you, Lauren, and thank you for popping that back up for a second for me there. You're doing a great job mirroring me there. Appreciate that. So the boring stuff, rules, regulations, guidelines, that kind of stuff. How are you delivering that and measuring whether or not that landed home and got implemented?
So we rely a lot on our regionals, obviously, to disseminate information, but we also use Grace Hill. So we are able to upload documents, have them read it, take a little 2-question or 3-question test at the end and sign it saying that they read it. So that's a great way that we can track who has seen it, who has read through it. We give you a little quiz, you sign off on it. And then obviously those boots on the ground, the regionals, the vice presidents, the marketing team, anybody that's out on the property, we can check up and make sure that that's happening. So it's kind of twofold. Again, it's that very technical, like you got to check this box, you have to sign off. And then we rely on the regionals again to follow up, but it's also that you go there and you see, okay, are they actually following the protocol? Yeah. You can't always assume that because somebody read something and read a piece of paper that it's being followed, right? So
yep. We know that in many instances, including leases sometimes, right?
Yeah.
That mention of Grace Hill was great. I'm actually, Lauren, I'm going to skip forward on polling questions. Where I don't need you to double these up this close together, but you teed this one up for me. I'm curious on if anyone else is using like a standard like LMS system. So Lauren, if you could pop that one up for me while I move on to the flip side of great leasing agent. We've had an ongoing debate for people that come on to these SOFA seminars talking about the rock star leasing agent versus the philosophical question, is there such a thing as an untrainable leasing specialist? Let's start with a yes or no here.
Untrainable leasing. Well, yeah.
What do you do to try to help that and try to get in front of that? We know what the ultimate outcome could be, but what are the steps to try to confirm that? Because I feel like there's also some people where, your first instinct is, oh my God, there's nothing I can do with this person, right? And in my experience, 6 times out of 10, that's not actually the case. There's something there that could have been fixed. 4 of them, you just got to cut your losses and move on, right? But 6 of those you probably could save. What are some of those steps you should be taking from a training perspective to really understand what those needs are and try to deliver it to them in a way that they can consume?
Sure. I mean, obviously the first thing is even just the hiring process, right? The screening process. What did they do before? How are you feeling with them in an interview? We usually have a couple people talk to someone that we're onboarding, maybe not at a leasing consultant. Well, yeah, probably even at a leasing consultant. You know, we have the property manager, they might sit in with a regional manager to see their personality. Again, are they going to be able to, you know, come out of their shell if they're not already? So, I mean, I think a lot of the unteachable things are the things we talked about, the intangibles that you can't really teach, that are inherent traits in somebody's personality. I
Yeah.
think you can teach anybody to use a software system if they care enough. I think the four
Yes.
that you're talking about just don't care. They're there to get a paycheck, and that's it. And that's fine
Yeah.
for you. That's not fine for us. Thank you for your time, but sorry, this just isn't working. And
You
we
can go
don't
back
just
to Arby's.
we don't just axe you, right? I mean, we developed this training program for a reason. We don't want to just say, sorry, this isn't the right fit. We're going
Right.
backwards now and saying, we realize there were gaps. We're realizing we might not have given you the tools you need to succeed. And we're not calling someone out specifically. Like I said, everybody is starting over at kind of the beginning, right? So it's not going, you five, you're not that great, so you're going to training. That's not how we're rolling with this. That might come later with more of counseling, right? Because we do counseling. We have senior property managers that can go and try to help if there's a property manager or an assistant property manager that's struggling. You know, we have rockstar leasing consultants that can go and shadow somebody to kind of see, okay, they're just not confident. Once they gain their confidence,
It's simple.
they're amazing. They just don't have the confidence in themselves. So it's not that they don't care. It's not that they don't know what they're doing. It's not that they don't want to be there. They're just not confident. They're brand new to the industry, or even not brand new to the industry. It's just a new position. And it also comes down to
New ownership.
Yes, but the manager.
Uh,
That's why managers and assistants and leasing consultants all have to go through this very basic step one, because you can have an amazing team, but if the manager is toxic or the manager is not a good leader, and if they act like they don't care, that is a trickle down effect. You emulate what you see. So we have to have that strong manager, that strong leader that's like, yeah, team, this is great. Let's go. I know we had a rough day, but blah, blah, blah. You know, a little morning pep talk, a little morning mojo, like, let's get going, is a world of difference.
Ugh.
We have seen just changing out some leadership. Maybe it's just not a good fit internally. That's not a bad manager. Those just personalities aren't necessarily melding.
Yes.
So let's switch it
Yes.
up a little bit. And it's amazing what that can do. So you're not having to get rid of anybody. You're just, you know, mixing up the pot a little bit.
I love it. It's a positive approach to a negative problem. It's like
Exactly.
classic Angie. Love
Fish
it.
philosophy.
There we go. All right, so we are going to. I've heard a lot of really good stuff about why you went into it, how you're like moving forward with it as well. Lauren, you can pop that answer up for me. Also, just I'm kind of curious about what the answer is. 90% of the folks are using some sort of LMS. We've got one person that gave a no. And is using something else, which is very normal progression of like trying to like do it through some other systems. And you don't necessarily need an LMS until you need to scale sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Once you're at that point, it's kind of becomes really, really important. And so certainly something we even learned at PERC and just recently got one ourselves within the past 6 months or so.
Nice.
So we learned about going in there, some of the things to look for, even how to kind of measure some of the things on the back end. There's a lot to be learned sometimes from hindsight as well, right? I'm curious about, as you're looking backwards, like what are some things that you would have done differently or that you wish you would have done, or you would suggest people kind of watch out for if they're going through this like training building program?
Yeah, I think one difficult part was because we were kind of over here doing sales and leasing, and our ops, you know, teams and trainers were over here, and we are kind of ADD, Jeff and I. So we're like squirrels running around back and forth across the road, trying not to get hit. And so we just dove right in and just started working on it and get whiteboards and Well, the software team, they have a lot more to do. It's very technical. It's screenshots and, you know, this is the flow of how you enter information in MRI. This is how you know, put in a work order. This is how you do this, how you do that. So that was very technical. And so I think my boss really wanted to get this off the ground like ASAP before, you know, before leasing season, before the summer, before things get busy and crazy. And so we just jumped right in and we started it. And then we were like, oh, wait, whoa, but they're not ready yet. And so that was a little, I wouldn't say breakdown because we were still communicating, but we were so gung ho to get it moving. And my boss was like, dude, go. Don't wait for them. Don't stop. And I feel like we would have maybe taken it a little bit slower in the beginning and really kind of were a little more collaborative with the other side of the training team. So that's one thing. Having a way for them to sign up and be held accountable that they're going to be there. I would send out a calendar invite, people to accept and all of that, but then you're like manually writing down, okay, they came. So I didn't find this, another team member of ours found Sign Up Genius, which is a great tool where you can set up trainings, you can send an e-blast out, or you can send it to just specific people. If a regional says, I want all of my leasing consultants to take XYZ training. So you can do it to everybody. You can do it to a small group of a distribution list, and everybody, there's a certain number of spots on certain days. You sign up, and then we know who's coming. We know what property they're from, all of that stuff, so that we're not having to manually track. I was tracking it in a spreadsheet of what days we were doing training, the time we were doing it, who was coming, what their title was, what their property was, all of that stuff. So this is a great way, and we can go in and check at any time to see how many people signed up. That has been a huge lifesaver. So anybody go, and I'm not paid for this ad, Sign Up Genius.
We will add that into the recap as well.
Yes.
Make sure you get a link in there in the recap blog post.
I've never even heard of it, but it's
Neither have I, but I'm looking it up now. I love that. All right, if you've got questions, now's the time to pop them in as we enter into my last kind of official question, or kind of two last, actually. I guess there's two. I also can be long-winded sometimes. All right, forward looking. You mentioned about things opening back up, right? 2020 was obviously a very weird year, right? The first half so far of 2021 has been like, what's happening? We figure things out every single day, right? Things will settle down, but looking forward is like kind of training and what a leasing specialist needs, because also the shopping process and buying and leasing process, I think, has changed a lot from a resident and consumer perspective, which means that our experience as leasing agents has changed as well, right? Going forward, what types of skills, et cetera, do we need to focus on making sure our leasing specialists have to succeed in what will be the future of leasing?
That's a really, really good question. And I'm going to try not to be long-winded with this, but I mean, obviously all the skills that you have in person, you have to have in front of a camera, right? People want virtual tours. They want to jump on FaceTime. They want to jump on Zoom. They want, we use RealLink at some of our properties. You have to be able to adapt. You have to be able to know how to use Perk, and what does that mean? And what are these tools? Because sometimes you will go to a property and they're like, Perk, great. RealLink, what? Because they're new and they don't know and they haven't been told. And, the manager might've been trained on it and what it is, or, the previous team, but now there's two new leasing consultants. They're like, what? So making sure that, that they're adaptable to adopting technology and that they're not afraid to be in front of a camera. Some people do not like to be in front of a camera. They don't like to see themselves, but we know that video posting on social media, we know videos on websites get more interaction and get more engagement than a static photo or a virtual tour without a person in front of it. That's a fact. We have metrics to show it. So are you comfortable, jumping on your phone and trying to do a video? They can send it to me. I'll edit it. I'll put music to it. I'll make it prettier, but are you willing to go do that?
to
right?
do it.
Are you willing to be in front of the camera? Can you be just as genuine across the camera as you can in person? Because again, people may still be comfortable going out now that things are opening back up, but that doesn't mean they're gonna want to come to your property.
No, I've
Everybody
saved so
looks
much time
online,
not driving anymore.
and then you get there and the property's closed for some random reason because now they're on a training with me, and so so really being adaptable, being able to still have that in-person connection, but also be able to really be comfortable with the new technology.
That's a good one.
Is kind of the crux of it. There's obviously, I could go on for days about it, but that's really the crux of it, is
Okay.
being adaptable to what the prospect needs, not what you're comfortable with. What
I
is
love
going to make
that.
their lives easier? What's the path of least resistance to getting them to sign a lease?
I love that. So you teed me up for a question that I did not know I was going to ask, but now I'm curious and I have to ask this before I hand back over to Lauren. So you mentioned about, especially a leasing specialist type of scenario where they may not understand the value of the technology that's being used at their location, whether that be Perk, whether that be RealLink, right? I love their tool. Definitely a lot of value there as well. How do you, outside of just training them, this is how to use it and saying, "How go do it," like what do you do or what do you need to do to actually show them the value and get them bought into those technologies that you've brought to the table for them?
It's a great question. When we onboard a new technology, we typically do it in small pieces, right? We might do a couple properties at a time. That gives us a basis for metrics. What was like, for obviously your tool, for example, we can see how many minutes somebody's on our website when they're not engaged with the Perk tool and how many minutes they are when they're engaged with the Perk tool. And it is 200, 300, 500% longer. And I know that they do reports for a certain owner group every single month. And Kirk, if he's on this call, he knows, because I can never end up pulling all of the information I want. And I'm like, hey, it's the first of the month, I need that stuff again. And he's probably like, dummy, you can pull it yourself, but
he's got
you.
you.
Time for that. So it's that. And then the RealLink, you can see how many views, how many times it was shared. If you share a link with a specific person for a RealLink tour, you can see how many times Angie viewed that or Muhammad viewed that. And like, ooh, Angie only viewed that floor plan twice, but Muhammad viewed it 27 times. I think he likes it. So
I'm into that full view.
A lot of insight. And then you can say, hey guys, look what this team did. Look how much engagement they have. Look how many leases they got, so that we have a basis for comparison. And then that gets them excited. Like, well, why don't we have that? And that's really how it is we, like I said, we typically do not ever roll something out full bore all at once, whole entire portfolio. One, it might not be in somebody's budget, but two, we really want to test it and be able to show the value, not only to the on-site team, but the owners. Our owners, the Franklins and the Johnstons, are always saying, what are people doing that we're not doing? What are people doing in other markets? And I've had conversations with RealLink and probably Perk going, how many customers do you have in our market? Am I the only one? Because I want to be the first to try.
Right.
Even if it doesn't end up working, I like trying something, but the owners also have the money and they can tell me whether I can do it or not. But I love that the Franklins and Mr. Johnston allow me to kind of use some of their properties they own as guinea pigs so that I can prove the value. And then I can take that to our other owner groups that are our partners and say, hey, look what we did here. Let's give it a shot. So
I love it. Proof is proof, right?
Yeah.
There we go. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today, Angie.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you. And I appreciate you running through parking lots and hotel lobbies to get here on time and sit down, because I know you had a really busy day,
and
really busy trip right now. An absolute superwoman. Love it. All right, I'm going to kick back over to Lauren.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Angie and Muhammad. It was such a great discussion. I think we learned, always be genuine, always make training that is specific for you and for what your property needs, and be on the lookout at restaurants for someone to hire. Find your next rock star leasing agent there. A couple things. So you guys will be receiving this full recording as well as resources from this session and a full recap blog, hopefully on Friday, if not Friday, Monday. So be on the lookout for that. And then if you notice, Mohammed and I are twinning in our shirts today. This is our new AI leasing assistant. It's a brand new product we just launched a few months ago. We are hosting a webinar on that next Wednesday, the 16th at 10 a.m. We're going to do a product overview with our product expert, Maria Rummel. She's going to take you through why we decided to develop this product, what it looks like, and kind of the future planning for that. So if you guys want to learn more about our new AI leasing assistant, please hop onto that. I will drop a link in the follow-up email. But other words, we do host these every month. We are doing our next one in July with Windsor, so also be on the lookout to sign up for that in the recap email coming to you hopefully tomorrow. But again, Angie, Mohammed, it was a great conversation, and thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.